"I am very fertile, I'll give you a child," the giant bride whispered, and the cowboy claimed her. Witness this unbelievable, true-inspired story right here on Whisper of the Past. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from.
Let's get started.
The story begins under the wide skies of Texas, where the summer heat rolled across endless fields of golden grass. The land stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with cattle, windmills, and the occasional dirt road that led to small towns and scattered ranches. In one of those towns lived a man named Ethan Cole, a cowboy by heart and by trade. He was tall, rugged, with the kind of weathered face that told a story of hard work, loss, and resilience. Ethan was known by everyone for his quiet strength, his honesty, and the way he kept to himself after his wife passed away years ago. Though many respected him, the loneliness of his ranch had long become a silent shadow he carried everywhere. Ethan's life was simple, made up of long days on horseback, fixing fences and tending to cattle. Yet beneath his strong exterior was a man who missed the warmth of family, the laughter of children, and the comfort of love. He had once dreamed of a house full of life, but those dreams had faded into the quiet wind that howled across the prairie. Still, in the stillness of night, when the stars burned bright over the Texas sky, his heart whispered for something more. One late afternoon, while hauling supplies from Amarillo, Ethan passed a commotion on the edge of town. A traveling show had arrived, pitching tents, raising banners, and drawing curious crowds with promises of wonders never seen before. Bright posters flapped against the wooden poles, announcing in bold letters, "Come witness the giant bride," a woman taller, stronger, and fairer than any other in America. Normally, Ethan would have ignored such displays. He wasn't one for circus tricks or loud distractions, but something tugged at him that day. Perhaps it was the loneliness in his chest or the faint pull of curiosity. He tied his horse near the crowd and stepped inside the large canvas tent where the townsfolk had gathered. The moment his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw her. Towering above the crowd, nearly 7 feet tall, stood a woman unlike anyone he had ever laid eyes on. She wasn't the grotesque spectacle the show posters had painted her to be. Instead, she carried herself with grace, her long auburn hair falling in waves over her shoulders, her striking green eyes calm but distant. She wore a simple dress that tried and failed to disguise her stature. The crowd gasped and murmured, some laughed, others pointed. But she stood there in silence, as if she had grown used to the noise. The whispers, the stares. Her name, the announcer declared with theatrical pride, was Clara May. But Ethan didn't hear the rest of the man's boastful words. His focus was locked on her face, where a quiet sadness lingered, hidden beneath a dignified expression. She wasn't just tall, she was strong, graceful, and beautiful in a way the others couldn't see. To them, she was an attraction. To Ethan, she was a woman trapped in the wrong story. When the crowd finally dispersed, Ethan didn't leave. He lingered by the edge of the tent until Clara's eyes found his. For a brief moment, the world grew quiet, and a flicker of connection sparked between them. Ethan tipped his hat, a respectful nod that held no mockery, no judgment, just sincerity. Clara's lips curved into a small smile, perhaps the first real smile she had given in days. Later that evening, when most of the showmen were busy with their routines, Ethan found a chance to speak with her. She was sitting alone near the back of the tent, gazing at the fading horizon through a flap in the canvas. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked in his calm, steady voice. She looked up at him, her green eyes soft yet weary. "I suppose that depends on what you mean by all right, cowboy." Ethan pulled up a nearby crate and sat across from her. "All right as in happy, all right as in free. From where I stand, you don't seem to be either." Her lips trembled into a faint laugh, but her eyes glistened with unspoken pain. "Happy? Freedom? Those words left me the moment I was brought here. To them, I'm a spectacle. A ticket to be sold, a story to be exaggerated." Ethan didn't look away. He saw the truth in her words. He had seen the same hollow loneliness in his own reflection too many times. For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the rustle of the prairie wind outside the tent. Finally, Clara leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, as though sharing a secret she had carried for years. "I don't want to live this way anymore," she confessed. "I want a home, a husband who sees me as a woman, not as a prize. I want children, a family, a life of my own. I'm very fertile," she whispered, cheeks flushing with honesty. "I'll give you a child if you'll take me away from this life." The words struck Ethan with the force of a storm. He hadn't expected such a confession, nor the raw sincerity behind it. She wasn't bargaining for pity or pleading for escape. She was offering her heart, her future, and the chance at the family he had once lost. For a moment, Ethan's breath caught in his chest. He thought of the empty ranch house, the quiet suppers alone, the silent mornings with only cattle for company. He thought of the ache in his chest that never left him, the prayers he had whispered under the stars for a second chance at life. And here, before him, was a woman who wanted the same things he did. Not wealth, not glory, but love, family, and belonging. Ethan reached for his hat, holding it against his chest. His voice was steady, filled with quiet conviction. "Clara May, if you'll trust me, I'll take you away from here. My ranch may be small, but it's a home. And if you'll be my wife, you'll never again be someone's display. You'll be my partner, my family." Her eyes widened, tears threatening to spill, but she held them back with a brave smile. For the first time in years, Clara felt seen not for her size, but for her heart. She nodded softly. "I'll trust you, Ethan Cole. I'll trust you with everything I have." The decision was made that night under the fading lights of the circus tent. Ethan promised to return in the morning with his wagon. Clara, without hesitation, agreed to leave the only life she had known in years. For once, the road ahead felt open, not frightening but full of promise. As Ethan mounted his horse and rode back under the starry Texas sky, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. For years, he had carried the burden of loneliness. Tonight, for the first time in a long time, he carried hope. Hope for a new beginning, hope for a family, and hope for a love that had found him in the most unexpected way. The prairie wind whispered around him as if the land itself approved of his choice. Tomorrow, the world would change, for him and for the giant bride who had whispered her heart's desire. And as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Ethan Cole was ready to claim not just a wife, but the life he had always dreamed of. The morning after their secret conversation, the sun rose over the Texas plains with a pale golden light that promised a new beginning. Ethan Cole hitched his wagon to his strongest horses and rode back to the edge of town. The carnival was already stirring with life, barkers shouting, workers hammering, and children running about with sticky candy in their hands. But Ethan didn't look at the crowd. His eyes searched for Clara May. She stood at the back of the tent, her simple dress fluttering in the wind, her tall frame poised with both fear and determination. When Ethan climbed down from the wagon, Clara met his gaze. There was no hesitation in her eyes. She had spent too many years under the control of men who treated her like a curiosity. Now she wanted something real. She carried only a small satchel, all her belongings packed into one bag. Her life until now had been little more than movement from town to town, a series of nights spent on hard cots in temporary shelters. Today, for the first time, she was leaving that world behind. The showman noticed her and rushed forward, demanding to know where she was going. "You can't just walk out. You belong to this show. Folks pay good money to see you," one of them shouted. Clara, who had spent her whole life bending to the will of others, straightened her shoulders. She was taller than all of them, and for the first time, she let that height become her strength. "I don't belong to anyone," she said firmly. "Not anymore." Ethan stepped between her and the angry men, his hand resting casually on the holster at his hip. His calm eyes warned them not to push further. The men grumbled but didn't dare cross him. The cowboy's reputation in Texas towns carried weight. and no one wanted to end up on the wrong side of Ethan Cole. Without another word, Ethan guided Clara to the wagon, helped her climb up and flicked the reins. As the horses pulled them away, Clara didn't look back. The journey to Ethan's ranch stretched over open plains, the wind carrying the scent of wildflowers and cattle. Clara sat quietly at first, her hands folded in her lap, the weight of her decisions sinking in. Ethan glanced at her occasionally, noticing the way her green eyes studied the horizon with both awe and uncertainty. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you really believe a woman like me can have a normal life?" she asked softly. Ethan kept his eyes on the trail. "Clara, there's no such thing as normal out here. We make our lives what they are. You want a home, a family? Then that's what we'll build, together." Her lips curved into a small smile. No man had ever spoken to her that way, not as a possession, not as a marvel, but as a partner. She leaned back in the wagon, letting herself breathe freely for the first time in years. By the time they arrived at the ranch, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Ethan's ranch house was modest, a wooden structure with a wide porch, surrounded by fields and pastures. To Clara, who had lived out of tents and wagons, it looked like a castle. She climbed down from the wagon, her heart swelling with emotion. "This will be your home now," Ethan said. "It ain't much, but it's honest. And it's ours." Clara ran her hand along the porch rail, feeling the smooth wood beneath her fingers. She looked at Ethan with tears in her eyes. "It's everything I've ever wanted." The days that followed were filled with adjustment. Clara learned the rhythm of ranch life, and though some tasks were new to her, she took to them with surprising ease. Her strength was unmatched. She could haul water buckets with one arm, stack hay bales with ease, and repair fences faster than most ranch hands. But it wasn't just her strength that amazed Ethan, it was her gentleness. She sang softly while tending the garden, laughed freely when calves nibbled at her dress, and spoke with kindness to everyone she met. Still, life was not without challenges. The townsfolk were curious, and some were cruel. Whispers followed Clara whenever she went to the general store. Children stared wide-eyed, and some adults mocked behind her back. One afternoon, when Ethan accompanied her into town, a group of men made a crude joke loud enough for her to hear. Ethan's jaw tightened, and he stepped forward, ready to put an end to it. But Clara placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. "They don't matter," she said calmly. "I've lived with worse. What matters is that I am not theirs to laugh at anymore. I am yours. I am free." Her words silenced the ache in Ethan's chest. He realized then just how strong she truly was, not only in body but in spirit. From that day on, he admired her even more. As the months passed, their bond deepened. Evenings were spent on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the horizon, sharing stories of their pasts. Clara spoke of her childhood in Oklahoma, of how her unusual height had made her both admired and feared. Ethan shared stories of his late wife, his days on cattle drives, and his dreams of a family. Slowly, the empty places in their hearts began to heal. Then, one crisp autumn morning, Clara came to Ethan with trembling hands and tears in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of joy. She was carrying his child. Ethan's heart nearly burst. He wrapped her in his arms, holding her tightly as he whispered words of love and gratitude. The dream he had thought long dead was coming true. Clara had given him not just companionship, but the promise of a future, a family, and a new beginning. Her pregnancy became the talk of the town, and while some still whispered behind their backs, others began to see her in a new light. Neighbors came by to offer congratulations, women from the church brought meals, and slowly the whispers of mockery faded into quiet respect. Clara, once the giant bride in a traveling show, was now the wife of a respected cowboy and soon-to-be mother. On a cold winter night, as snow fell softly across the Texas plains, Clara gave birth to a strong, healthy baby boy. The ranch echoed with his cries, filling the house with a sound Ethan thought he'd never hear again. He held his son in his arms, his eyes wet with tears, and looked at Clara, exhausted but glowing with love. "You've given me back everything I lost," Ethan whispered. "A family. A reason to live. You were never just a giant to me, Clara May. You were always the answer to my prayers." Clara smiled weakly, brushing her hand against his cheek. "And you were mine." The months that followed were filled with joy and struggle, the way life always is. Raising a child on a ranch was hard work, but Clara and Ethan faced it together. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, their laughter echoing across the wide open land. The neighbors, once skeptical, now admired them. People came to see not the giant bride or the lonely cowboy, but a family built on love, respect, and resilience. In time, the legend of Clara May and Ethan Cole spread across Texas, but it was not told as a tale of mockery or spectacle. Instead, it was shared as a story of love found in the most unlikely of places, of a cowboy who saw beyond appearances, and of a woman who found her freedom and her home. Together they built a life that no poster or circus tent could ever capture, a life of dignity, love, and hope. And every evening, when the sun sank low and the stars began to burn over the Texas sky, Ethan would hold Clara close on the porch, their child asleep inside, and whisper, "You gave me back a family, and for that I will love you for all my days."